it's Mark Potter, Shore Sports MD, and the winter sports season just around the corner. It starts Monday the 15th with tryouts, and we've got Dan Harding here. He is Kent Island's athletic director, but he's also the head of the athletic directors in the Bayside. And thanks for taking the time out with us, because a lot has changed heading into this winter sports season. One of the biggest changes is this year we actually have a sports season.
That is correct. So we are super excited to have a sports season. It is something that we absolutely very much missed going into last winter, and we're excited to have it back.
Yeah, this is a season, the winter sports, they had their championships cut the previous year, back at the 2019 season, and then last year there was no season whatsoever. About a month ago, rules came out from the Bayside, from your desk, about rule changes and how there's mandatory testing for those that aren't vaccinated, and the procedures as to what happens if somebody tests positive. Before we get into that, we're wrapping up a volleyball season where we didn't have these mandates, and yet we're wearing masks, and they don't have to wear a mask while they're competing, but we didn't have these mandates. So where did this come from, and why are the rule changes going into winter compared to the fall sports?
Good question. The multiple counties within the Bayside Athletic Conference, their superintendents, the supervisors of athletics, in conjunction with, or at least conversation with the local health departments, felt that to keep it safe, to keep the spread, because we're all inside, and I understand volleyball is all inside as well, but just a larger group being inside. The winter season perhaps also, and this may not, I was not told this, but I do know that we see numbers creep up in the winter for flu and other illnesses. So I think that was just for out of an abundance of caution. We're going to do regular testing, and then our hope is we will be able to have a safe and complete season, which, as you mentioned earlier, we did not have last year.
One of the things that surprised me, so volleyball didn't have limited admission. Basketball, they're mandating you can't have the same amount. I know in Caroline County, they're getting 4 passes, and those passes are going to be laminated, so that kid's got to keep track of that, and if he loses it, he's out of luck. And I think it's kind of ridiculous to think that our high school students are going to be able to keep track of those passes.
I have 3 high school kids myself. The 2 girls of mine would keep track of it. My stepson would probably lose his in a minute, but that's probably unfair. So I would say that hopefully same rules are going to apply in Queen Anne's County. Our hope is that we're going to be able to provide it's really 4 guests for a home athlete, 2 for away. And then really I think everyone, superintendents on down, are hoping to be able to loosen those restrictions as the season goes on.
But why the change? We didn't have it in volleyball.
It's a great question. I'll go back to what I said earlier. There's a concern that it's all inside. I mean, and as someone whose daughter plays volleyball, I think the thought was the crowd size for a typical volleyball game isn't one that hits a number that is concerning. So I think that's why it started. And I think we are worried about filling our gyms with wrestling and basketball. But my winter coaches are saying the same thing. How come for the winter when we didn't do it for the fall?
You mentioned wrestling, a great sport, a very close contact sport. So it's my understanding that the wrestlers wear their mask onto the mat, and they can't shake hands with their opponent. They take their mask off. They wrestle. Then they finish. They can't shake hands with the opponent. Then they have to put their mask back on. Doesn't that seem a little absurd?
It's been a point of conversation because, like you said, it's a very intimate sport. Our hope is that we can mitigate the COVID factors as much as possible. And I guess my answer to that would be if those are the rules we need to play by to have our kids wrestle, because that's a sport I've been most worried about, because I don't know how you could have a winter season without wrestling. And that was the talk way back when COVID first hit is, well, maybe wrestling doesn't happen and the other sports could. And from the MPSSAA all the way down, it didn't seem right to exclude them. So we're willing to play by those rules. I also hope there's some leeway given. Yeah, I'm thinking if I wrestled for 6 hard minutes, as soon as I got off the mat, I'm not going to be able to throw a mask back on and fully kind of recover. So the hope is that they wouldn't have to throw them back on right away. But if we need to wear them to have a wrestling season, that's what we're willing to do.
And of course, isn't it close proximity for 15 minutes? I mean, if you get your wrestling match over, it doesn't impact you as much. Let's talk about the way it's going to look. Mandatory testing for those not vaccinated, for the student athletes not vaccinated. Everyone's eligible at this age group to be vaccinated. Do you think it's a punishment for those that elect not to be vaccinated, saying, hey, you've got to get yourself tested every 2 weeks if you don't want to take the shot?
I can see how that would be. I've heard from many parents, both at within Kent Island High School and then across the conference, and I would say some of them feel that way. A thing I've heard that I can appreciate that I wasn't fully aware of until last week is the more consistent testing we do, the less stringent the rules need to be, because within regular testing, it's just those that pop up positive that we're worried about, and so the close contact tracing could be lessened because we are testing more regularly. So that was a silver lining to that. But there are certainly parents that feel as if unvaccinated athletes are being targeted.
And of course, my biggest concern for the student athletes would be the ones that have a false positive, but yet no time to recoup the time missed from practice and what have you. Is there a mandate, because I don't have the letter in front of me, to where if you do test positive but you have no symptoms, is there a rule where you can get back practicing with no symptoms quicker than 10 or 14 days?
Yes, so it could be independent. Within Queen Anne's County, we've had conversations where if you did get a positive test, you as an athlete could go retest, whether that be at Walgreens, CVS, your pediatrician, anything not including, I guess, the take-home test or the at-home test. But any tests outside of that, you can go get and try and correct that false positive if that's what happened. So when I hear that, I think, okay, you could get the scenario where the kid tests positive the day of and sits that game, but the hope would be if it was a false positive, they're at the next practice, they're playing at the next game.
That is our hope, and we do thank Dan Hardig for taking the time and being very coy with us, and and answering the questions the best you could. But we're going to have to wear our masks, folks, vaccinated or not vaccinated. You're going to have to wear your mask in the school building, and the students that are on the field or on the court or on the mats, they don't have to wear their mask then, but they will have to put them back on. And we're looking forward to covering a winter sports season finally back on the Bayside.
Yes, and that's what we're very much excited for. And if the numbers remain low and get lower, our hope is things relax.